The whole spirituality thing was unnerving because you've never thought about this. I mean, you're sitting here right now, and there's atoms and molecules, and you love all that, and you're great. When somebody tells you there's angels with you right here, it's like, where are they?
How do I measure that?
Are they going to hurt me? And then when someone says God knows everything about you, I'm thinking, he doesn't just know how many hairs I have on my head. He knows where all the electrons are and all the atoms and all the protein molecules and every hair on my head. Like, it was just too much.
Hello and welcome to a special Parousia Podcast. I'm Charbel Raish, your host, and I'm recording here in Perth, Western Australia. And I'm with a mother, a grandmother, a chemist, professor, an author, a speaker. And she's on tour now with Evangelization Australia. Her name is Stacy Trasancos, and she's with me in Perth, Australia. Hello, Stacy. How are you?
It's great to be here.
Yeah.
Great to be here
Thanks
with you
for being
in Australia, down under.
That's right. Yeah, we are down under. And in Perth specifically, it's one of the most remote major cities in the world, they say. So it's a big country, Australia, and you've come. This is your second trip, is that right?
Second trip. Mm-hmm.
Wow. Is that your second overall in Australia? Or
yes,
Perth?
second time overall. It's a bit of a paradox because it does not feel remote here.
No, it's a major
remote,
city. Yeah,
major city.
Yes.
So you still feel pretty connected with the rest of the world. Yeah.
Yeah, it's beautiful weather. It's been amazing over here, and you've been enjoying your trip so far.
It's been it took us a few days to get adjusted to the time zone, but it's been a blessing being here. It's meeting the people. Yes. People ask me how it's different from where I am. It's very much like Texas.
Oh, really? Okay.
The people here are very much like Texans, just very outgoing, happy to speak to you.
Wow. So yeah, you are from Texas, Tyler, Texas, that area.
Diocese of Tyler.
You grew up there? Did you grow up there?
I grew up in East Texas.
Okay.
So that's the general area. I grew up in a different town, Paris, Texas.
It's called Paris.
It's called Paris, Texas. We have an Eiffel Tower with a cowboy hat on.
Really?
So that's where I grew up. But then I spent most of my adult life in the Northeast, up in New York and Massachusetts and Virginia. Okay. So we moved back to Texas in 2017. So it's like a coming home because I was never a New Yorker.
No. Oh, wow. Well, I'd love to, this is your first time on our Parousia podcast, and love to introduce you to our audience. You've got a very interesting background. You are a convert as well. I didn't mention that. And I'd love to just, being your first time, just a bit of a quick overview about who you are. I mean, growing up, what was your faith, and then how did you come into the Catholic faith? Just a bit of everything. So who is Stacy Trasancos?
Yeah, I grew up in rural East Texas, Paris, Texas, and Baptist. So most people are Southern Baptist down there, and it's a very simple faith. And I remember my parents, who are wonderful people, teaching me all about Jesus. I remember the first time I had the faith and science question, my mom just told me, God made everything. God made the big round sun, God made the trees, and God made me. And I was like, cool, that makes sense. And it fueled my love of science. And I'm just one of those kids who always liked science. But as I got older, like a lot of young people say, I think that the Baptist religion didn't really have the answers I was looking for. And science had a lot of answers, and so I didn't even know that people do that. It just, to me at the time, it made sense. I wanted to study science, and when I went off to college to start pursuing scientific studies, I just dumped my religion. I just I don't need it. It was 1991 that REM song came out, Losing My Religion, and I remember that was just how it was for me, I'm not going to get up on Sunday morning and go to church anymore.
Oh, wow. Right through college?
All through college and into graduate school, and it was in my 30s before I had to confront that question again.
Wow, okay. So what were you studying in college?
Chemistry.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I started out with biology, and then I realized if you really want to understand biology, you need to get underneath it all with the chemistry. So it was very much a search for truth.
Yeah, interesting.
I wanted to know, I didn't know to call it first principles at the time, but to me, biology is like memorizing stuff, no offense to the biologist, and drawing little figures of how things fit together like enzymes and things, but I wanted to know what makes those up. So
yes.
I started out as a biologist and then studied chemistry and fell in love with it. I get so excited to teach it. I teach it to Catholic students now at colleges, but I tell them science is the study of God's handiwork, and when you understand atoms, you heard me talking last night. When you understand how atoms work, I really do think it just gives you this deeper appreciation for the mind of God and how what God is doing around us all the time.
That's awesome. I was fascinated last night about your talk and the way you described that, how small not only an atom is, but then within that, the protons, and oh my goodness, it's like these mini solar systems. I just blown away. I'd love to get into that, but
it breaks my heart how people that get out of high school hate chemistry because it's so abstract, and they don't even realize it's happening in their bodies and all around them every minute, and it's just sad. I love chemistry. I think it's amazing how logical the universe is. It's mind-blowing.
Do you think that the disconnect is the separation of modern day science, not really teaching science with with God in mind? Is that would that be a big part of it?
Yeah, because I used to teach at public institutions where there was no God in the picture, and for me in my life at that time, there was no God in the picture. So I know firsthand that it's not very satisfying just to open the chemistry book and say to the students, we're going to learn what protons are, we're going to learn where atomic theory came from, we're going to learn how to balance equations, we're going to learn how to write chemical formulas and name them. They don't care. They don't care. They'll do it to graduate, and that's all they care about, and that's why people hate chemistry, because it doesn't matter to their lives. But when I teach these Catholic kids, and I can say things like, even if you don't become a scientist, even if you don't become a chemist, what you learn in this class is going to change the way you see the world, and it will change your life for the rest of your life. And you'd be surprised how many of them decide to become a scientist then.
Wow. Okay. Praise God. Yeah, I love the idea of what you're doing, and almost like putting science back to where it belongs. Faith and science, that reunification, because they're not at odds, are they? They do. I mean, good science leads to a creator and truth. That's right. Oh, that's beautiful. Now, can we touch, you are married. Did you get married young, and you've got a few children now? So when did that happen?
Yeah, my life was a wreck before I started my conversion process. I was a single mother with 2 children.
Oh, wow.
And that was part of my reality check was, part of the reason I speak today, and because I'm kind of shy and like it's difficult getting up and speaking and planning the talks and things, but my passion for it is because I was one of those people who was all in on what we call scientism. I didn't call it that, but I literally thought that science had all the answers and that religion was unnecessary and philosophy is just for, let's like basket weaving, like if you want to go ahead, but what's the point? And I know what happens to a person with that outlook, and I think so many people have that outlook and they haven't thought about it. They haven't realized to the extent to which their materialism affects their ability to love and have relationships and have a healthy, emotionally healthy life and without God. And the biggest one was the 2 children I was raising. I really did, it breaks my heart to say it, and I've talked to them about it, but I really did treat them like objects, because to me they were objects. They were just...
Without God, that's
how your brain's telling you that, but your heart's telling you something else, but you don't even have the language to deal with what your heart's telling you. And, we're all made to search for truth and love, but when you don't realize that, you just kind of try to put it on the shelf and it doesn't work, and it just wreaks havoc in your life. So when I finally, by the time I got to 33, I was successful on paper. Like I had my big job, I was a single woman, I was like all into the feminist thing, I had 2 cars, I had my own house, but I was miserable and I was lonely and everything but happy. And I knew I was in trouble, and I knew my kids were in trouble, and so I'm like, all right, God, it's me, Stacy, remember? And I just remember I prayed one time at the lowest point and said, I was in my bedroom and just crying. When I was a little girl, just throw this in real quick.
Yes.
My grandmother, Baptist grandmother, gave me a little journal, and she said, Stacy Ann, I want you to write prayers to God every day. So it wasn't a diary, it was my prayer life. And I want you to read one chapter of the Bible every night and write your prayers to Jesus every day, not God, Jesus. And I did that, and from the age of like 8 on, my entire childhood is recorded in Dear Jesus prayers.
Wow.
Pouring my heart out. My mom saved them for me, and I read the Bible 3 times through because of that
As a young girl.
advice.
Wow.
So then when I set it all aside, I really had tried to be Christian, you know. So I'm saying that because it's important to do that with your kids, even if they turn away. Because when my life ran into when the wheels grinded to a halt, as they say, that was the thing that saved me. I remembered, and I literally one night in my bedroom in tears, sobbing because everything was broken, everything was messed up, and I got on my knees and I'm like, Dear Jesus, it's Stacy. Remember me writing all those prayers? And I just said, if give me a second chance, I'll do it right this time. And that's a few months later is when I met my cradle Catholic husband.
Wow. And
by the time we got married on 01, 02, 03, January 2nd of 2003, because he's a mathematician. Yeah. and so we're like, that's a good way to start our life together. But then with him, being comfortable with him and starting, we had a lot of problems because of my materialism, because I didn't know how to love. But I did say to him, I need the answers. That's what I said to him. I need the answers. Like, I grabbed him and shoved him against the wall. I'm like, I need the answers, and you have to tell me.
Was he practicing his faith at the time when you met him?
He wasn't, I don't want to say he was falling away, because he was never rebellious about it, but I don't think he was really practicing at that time, because we kind of helped each other. Because I wasn't letting it go. Like, I need to know the truth. I'm 33, time is running out, and he gave me the catechism.
Wow.
It's like
33.
The book of answers. I'm like, like all those questions I had as a Baptist girl, I found answers to it in the catechism. Like, this is brilliant. Y'all wrote it down. You have this. But when I read that line about children are gifts, I don't know what it was. It's like that truth striking a chord. It just, it sounds silly, but I'm like, yeah, they're not atoms and molecules. They're not objects. They're gifts. And that means there's something God gave you and entrusted to you. And it changed me so much that I quit my job and said, God, I'll take as many gifts as you can give me.
Wow. Can I, you touched on, you had everything the world said makes you happy.
Yes.
A successful career. You had the 2 kids.
Boy and a girl.
Boy and a girl, the whole balance, but you were miserable inside. So can I imagine there's a lot of people out there that are out there on the outside, have it all and look the part. Did you, on the outside, did people see your pain, or no? You had what was it like? And I'm curious, just because there are people probably watching who put on, I guess, a mask, or put on to say, I'm successful. People are looking up to me. I've got everything I want, but then really, truly, when they look down deep inside, they're not fulfilled. Could you touch on that? Like, speak to that?
It's a schizophrenia.
Okay.
It was really, I became very good. So, I mean, being a chemist, I'm naturally inclined to just compartmentalize and think logically, and it's real easy for me to just shut down emotions and just deal with the logic. Only I really wasn't being very logical. I was more like rationalizing things. But but compartmentalizing, I didn't realize how bad it was till I reflected later. So I didn't recognize it at the time. But I totally compartmentalized my personal life from my professional life. Put on appearances, and so when you become fixated and obsessed about the right appearances, you just don't have time to grow as a person. Like, you don't.
Interesting. Yeah.
And so on the outside, I was good at all of that. I was very practiced at, looking all the right ways and acting all the right ways and charming. And, I was tall, had blonde hair, and, I was a mess. But inside in your personal life, inside the walls of your house, it was desperation. I was a little girl. I never grew up in a lot of ways. I was a little girl, terrified I wasn't worthy of being loved, terrified that if I didn't play the role well enough out there, nobody was going to want me. And that was part of what caused problems with my husband, because he was tall, dark, and handsome, and I was like, oh, gotta have this man, and played my catch him game and all of that. And he, I didn't, in our marriage for many years, I was still playing that role, trying to look the way I thought trying to be who I thought he wanted me to be. I didn't know how to ask myself. And that was actually, I didn't know how to ask myself, who are you and what do you want? What do you want? It didn't matter what I want. What I wanted is what I needed to want to look the way I wanted to look,
Yeah.
So the most powerful thing Jose said to me, that's his name, when we got pregnant with our first child, which was right away, gonna have a baby, he said, all right, this is your third baby. We're gonna raise this child. He said, I want you to do whatever you want to do. I'll take care of you and the child if you want to quit your job and stay home. Whatever you want to do. Don't do what you think I want you to do. Don't do what you think anybody else wants you to do. You do what Stacy wants to do. And I'm like, I loved playing with dolls when I was a little girl. I just dreamed of being a mommy. And I want to be here for her. I want to be here every day for the rest of my older children's lives, and I want to be here for this one. And I walked away from my job. I quit.
Okay.
And they said, you'll never do research again because you're going to be out of the loop and you're not going to be. I'm like, I don't care. And Jose said, you might find you're interested in other things besides chemistry. And here I am, I started studying theology, and I still call myself a chemist because I'm teaching chemistry. I'm passionate about chemistry. I want people to know about chemistry, but only in the context of faith. And now I can use what I know about chemistry to look at philosophy and theology and help out there.
Interesting.
I know the science, and so I can be of a help with that conversation. So that's what I ended up doing. I never would have planned that life out for myself. I never would have thought that walking away would turn into so much. And when people say there's no room for women and women don't have leadership roles in the church or whatever, it was the church that told me, and my husband that told me, go be you.
Yes.
Figure out who you are.
Very true. Wow.
Yeah.
So you've read the catechism, you're married, you've got a child. So it's your third child. First, what was the faith journey now as a married woman with your husband's journey as well? Was he growing with you? Were you both learning together? And would you say was that years a process? We're lifelong learners, but was there a point where you said, I get it, I want to be a Catholic and I want this, did that take a while?
No, because as soon as I was so thirsty.
Okay.
And as soon as I found it, the whole spirituality thing was unnerving, because you've never thought about this. You're sitting here right now, and there's atoms and molecules, and you love all that, and you're great. When somebody tells you there's angels with you right here, it's like, where are they?
How do I measure that?
Are they going to hurt me? And then when someone says God knows everything about you, I'm thinking, he doesn't just know how many hairs I have on my head. He knows where all the electrons are and all the atoms and all the protein molecules and every hair on my head. It was just too much. And I do think with scientists that is an issue, because it's like the God that created everything you study, it's a little too much in your face. It's scary. It's scary thinking that the God who created everything around you loves you personally.
Yeah, wow.
It's too much to get your head around. So there was a lot of years where I did the thing of trying to look like the perfect Catholic mom. So I was all in at first. Okay. I wasn't hesitant. I was like, I grant intellectual assent to whatever the church teaches. Just tell me what it is, and
Did you get received in the church fairly soon?
No, it took 2 years.
Jeez, okay, yep.
It took 2 years. So when you're a Baptist, you say, I want to be saved, and they pretty much throw a parade as you walk down the aisle, and then it doesn't matter whether you come back or not.
Okay.
when the priest told me it's going to take a year, I'm like, nah, I don't think I want to be Catholic then. It's just going to take too long. But he said, you need to go through this process. And I learned a lot in that process. So I had to get an annulment.
Okay, yeah.
From my past. And that took a while. And no one told me I needed to do that. So I went through RCIA, and then they said, well, you need to get an annulment. And so when my class was received into the church, I had to sit at the back and not join them. And it was good for me. I needed it. And then I went through the process. And during those years, I said, you know what? I believe, if I really believe that Jesus Christ is truly present in the Eucharist, and I do, then I understand if I can't receive communion right now, but I'm going to be there. I told Jose, I'm like, if the newspaper said Jesus Christ is going to be in that building 10 minutes down the road every morning at 8 o'clock, I'm going to be there. He's like, well, you don't have to go to daily mass every day. I'm like, yes, I do. I did. So while I couldn't receive communion, and I had 2 toddlers and was pregnant with the third, I hauled them all to daily mass every day. I crossed my arms. I went down to the front, dragging them down with me, and everybody learned to help. The older parishioners helped me out. And the priest was like, I'm just going to see if you can have it first. I'm like, no, I'm going to wait. I'm going to do it the right way, and I'm going to wait. And I needed to do that. That taught me that it's not all about Stacy. It's not about me showing off. It's not about me living up to some standard. It's about subjecting myself to an objective truth, that the Mass is about Christ. And it taught me that, and that stayed with me. And I needed that tempering. I needed that change of how I look at things.
Yes.
So the day I first received communion was the day we celebrated our sacrament of matrimony, because 01, 02, 03 was civil, because I wasn't going to wait a year to marry him. I was afraid I'd lose him. So we celebrated the sacrament of matrimony. We baptized our third daughter, and I received First Communion on the same day.
Wow, okay.
And I almost passed out.
I can imagine. That's overwhelming. 3 major milestones.
It brought me to my knees. It was a beautiful day. And
you were living in the is it New York area, or were you?
We were in Massachusetts.
Massachusetts.
At that time.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
We moved around quite a bit with his job then, because he was supporting the family. So, it was a beautiful day. And my biggest struggle as a Catholic was trying to be the perfect here I was, the perfect feminist. Now I'm the perfect Catholic mother, and I had it took me 10, 15 years to realize I don't have to check all those boxes to make God happy.
Yes. What gave you that impression? Was that from the people around you? So that could be very common in some Catholic circles, where are you almost feeling judged by your fellow Catholic, and are you up to standard? And that's a real danger. That I think the devil plays with that. Mm-hmm. Would you say that's where the pressure was from?
Yeah, definitely. Because it was back in 2000. So 2006, I became Catholic, and I pretty much just hid for the next 4 years, because I was having baby after baby after baby, like nursing, like 4 daughters in 5 years we had.
Praise God.
And that was all I was doing. And then I started. Then I said I want to enroll in the theology program, but I started reading. I started a blog in 2010, so that's when blogs were becoming popular, right?
Yes.
And I started studying theology, and I said to Jose, I'm going to start writing, because I always wanted to write. I'm going to start writing about what I'm learning in my theology classes, but as a convert mother. Yes. And I was reading all the blogs, and so that's when I got into kind of more of a traditionalist circle, where you can't wear pants, and I didn't wear dresses all the time, but there was a time when I really questioned, is that what I'm supposed to do? And then the creationists got a hold of me and realized I don't have a problem with evolution, so I got sucked into those debates.
Yes.
And I started writing about motherhood too, like raising children, because it was hard with that many little children, just getting them to Mass. It was hard. And trying to keep a hold of yourself. So I really started writing in those years as, theology, motherhood, science, trying to put it all together. But that was where I got this idea that I have to check. I call it the checklist, because I say, don't do it. Don't do the checklist. That's not how you live your life of faith.
Yes.
If you're checking off the list, kids are in Catholic school, got plaid skirts on, check. Kids are praying the rosary with me every night, check. don't be surprised if your kids hate being Catholic by the time they're teenagers.
The amount of pressure, and it becomes a bit superficial if you're not careful.
I was doing the same thing in a different context.
Yeah, very interesting. So, that's the spiritual maturity that has to happen over time. That's a whole topic.
Life gets it out of you.
I'm keen. So you had a total of how many children?
So total.
Well, you gave birth to how many?
Yeah, I have 7 children. I've given birth to 7 children, raising 7 children. My oldest is 34.
Okay.
And I have a 28.
You're not old enough to have a 34-year-old.
Yeah, I am. She's doing wonderful. Her name's Reagan, and she has 5 kids.
Wow! Congratulations!
Herself.
Wow.
And she's a counselor. She helps people with addiction and mental health issues, especially women with dual diagnosis. So she's doing wonderful things in the world. And her kids she's got twin daughters and then 3 other kids, and they're wonderful. My son is 28, and he's been in the Navy for the last 8 years and working on nuclear power on ships. So we have a lot to talk about there.
Absolutely.
And he's married to a beautiful woman, so I'm just so proud of them. And then the 4 daughters that Jose and I had, they're 20, almost 19, 17, and 16. I have to stop and think because somebody's always having a birthday. But they're becoming adults now too, and finding their own way. And then our youngest is a boy, JJ.
Okay. Oh, wow.
Named after his dad. His name is Jose Jacinto, after his grandfather.
Wow. Yeah, it's a very common Spanish thing or South American thing. Yes.
Yeah. Except our little boy JJ has like light hair and blue eyes, and is very light skinned. His name's JJ, named Jose.
Oh wow! Yeah. Wow. Praise God! What a blessing and a gift. And as you said, you discovered they are a gift.
They are.
You touched, and I remember hearing the talk last night, you did touch on, you had some miscarriages as well, and how difficult that was, and that it's almost a topic that many women don't speak of, and myself included. We lost 1 child, and I remember how difficult that was, and I didn't realize until you go through. It's like this is almost like an unspoken pain. Can you touch on
very hidden
on that? That was difficult, of course, naturally. How many were there? Sorry, is it
5.
5 miscarriages.
5, and I think it's very common as women get older. When you approach 40, there are scientific studies where they look at the hormone levels of women, because that's how NFP is used. When your hormones start changing, you know if you're pregnant or if you're not going to get conceived that month. And so they were looking at hormones, and so they knew women were pregnant very early in the studies that I read. And the different studies, a pretty wide range, but it's a high number nonetheless. 30 to 70% of all conceptions don't survive to birth.
Okay.
Think about that.
Wow, yes. 30 to 70, that's a big range.
So if 70 is true, if anything over 50 is true, it means most humans who exist aren't even born.
Yes. Yes.
So it kind of changes the way you think about abundant life.
Wow.
I had to, and so those numbers kind of bear out for me. If you count the number of times I've been pregnant and the number of times I've lost children, it falls in that range.
Yes.
And so I think a lot of women suffer this. I think a lot of women don't even know when they miscarry a child. And that was when I really said, this NFP thing that the church, you know what I'm talking about with NFP?
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
This natural family, it's not just about family planning, it's about the woman knowing herself. And what happens when you do know that is, even though I lost those babies, I know they existed. Like it's horrifying to me to think I might have missed it. Like an early miscarriage, you might not even know you're pregnant, and then you miscarry the baby and you don't know. So although it was more painful because I loved them, thank God I knew about them.
Yes.
What if I didn't? Then I would rather have the pain and the knowledge than nothing. So
Amen.
I don't. I also, I thought people don't talk about it a lot, but I understand why, because it's a very hidden pain. And I don't care who you are, the woman feels like she's failed somehow. You can tell her she didn't, but it's her body that couldn't keep that baby alive, and it is a failure of sorts. It's not really, but you feel that way.
Okay.
It's hard not to think that. And that's why I think we need to talk about it more, just so women can express those feelings and find some camaraderie. It's one reason I talk about it. You know, because it was obvious to me back in those days, if the Trasancos family had 5 children that lived to be age 2, and they all died when they got to be age 2, the community would have turned out in droves to comfort us and offer condolences and be there for the family. But when you just lose a miscarriage, you know, the church says these are children, these are your babies.
Yes.
They're the same as any other person, just younger. Okay, well, when you lose them, it's just as painful if you really believe that.
Yes.
So,
very true.
But nobody knows how. Even Jose and I, we look back on it now. The hardest thing for him at that time, he was grieving the loss of his child, true, just like I was. But he was more, he said, I was more heartbroken about you. Like he didn't know how to help me. And like nothing he could say would fix it. Because
he could see what you're going through as well. I can relate to that.
He said he felt so helpless, and then in all of that, nobody's there for him. Nobody, you know, like he's just got to be the strong one and not know how to help. And those were really hard years for us, because I really fell into despair for a while, and it caused problems in our marriage and stuff. And we've gotten to the other side, which is a story unto it's a beautiful story yet again of what the church does for you.
Yeah.
You know, grace can get you through this. Just trust and be vulnerable and open up. But one thing he did during that time is, after it was all said and done, he went out and bought 5 little crosses and put them on the mantle. And he's like, maybe it's dumb, maybe it's stupid, but we're going to put these on the mantle just so that we always think of those babies. And we've
beautiful.
And the great thing now is that we pray for them, pray with them every day. And
they can be praying for you.
Comfortable. Just like I'm comfortable thinking about atoms, invisible things in the world, I'm totally comfortable now. I still cry when I talk about it a lot of times, but I'm also comfortable just saying those are my children. And I know them, and I, you know, in the way that I can.
Yes.
It's beautiful, because sometimes I say to them, okay guys, I just need you tonight to pray for all the children out there. If you got any friends up there, any children that don't have people praying for them, let's pray for them tonight. You know?
Yeah.
So I can, it helps me to be a better mother.
Yeah, and beautiful. Yeah, wow. It's a whole topic, and I mean, if people watching and probably thinking, you know, they've moved on, or they haven't even thought twice. If any women have had a miscarriage, they've tried to just bury it and not talk about it or share about it. But what I love, what you said last night was, if there was no God, then, and they're just protons and atoms, and then why would this be so painful? But the fact that there is a God, there is a creator that loves us, loves those children, and you as a mother can't deny the fact that these are real lives.
Yeah.
Well, hang on, it does count, it does matter. And does life, the whole debate in science, when does life begin? Can you set it straight here on camera for everyone? When does life begin?
At the beginning.
At the beginning.
That's what conception means.
Amen.
You know? It means at the beginning. Now, I did do a little thought experiment, like what is that nanosecond when it begins? Okay. Because if you think like a chemist, you're thinking in fractions of seconds.
Yes.
So here's the sperm, here's the other gamete, the egg, and they're coming together. At what nanosecond do they become one? You know, like, is it when their membranes touch? Is it when some chemical reaction kicks off? You know, because they say fusion, but fusion is a 24-hour process.
Okay.
So when exactly, I wanted to know that, but you know, I wrote about bioethics, and I said that it's kind of like death. We don't know the exact moment of death either.
Okay. It's not, is it when the heart stops, or is it when
the church says total disintegration, and philosophically it's a total disintegration, and theologically it's when the soul is not there anymore. Biologically it's when the organisms start, you know, irreversible heart stops or brain stops. But you know, like, what does the doctor do? He will check your heartbeat for 1 minute and then call the time of death, but it's after it's happened.
Yes.
So
okay.
no one really knows the exact moment
Okay.
If we're talking fractions of seconds of the beginning or the end. And so I'm not saying it's not conception. It obviously is.
Yes.
It's just that if you get into the really nitty gritty,
yes,
there's mystery there.
yeah, okay.
And it belongs to God. And it's
yeah.
all of us popped into existence in our mother's womb at a little moment in time
Yes.
when God alone knew. Not even your mother knew at that moment when it happened. She may have figured it out later, but in the moment
Very
when the
true.
woman's just sitting around, boom, there's a new life.
And by the time we find out, I mean, well and truly, you could say this, you know, when we know now, is it 18 days where the heartbeat can be picked up or something like that?
Yeah, very soon.
Really early.
Less than 3 weeks.
And by the time a woman figures out that she's pregnant, I mean, it's certainly weeks and weeks gone by. So it's certainly in that time. So by the time you found out, I mean, there's life.
There's life,
So it's the great debate. It's just interesting today how science can't be in agreement, and people are trying to pick. Is it what is it? Is it at the 12-week period?
Yeah.
At the 18 or 20?
Gastrulation.
22?
Yeah, they move it. And I cover that in my book, Particles of Faith, because they say it's not conception. They just say it's some other time. Like gastrulation is the point when twinning can't occur. So there's the whole debate about what if that one zygote becomes twins later. And so it's like, was there two or one at the beginning? And that's it's a mystery. I mean, there's some genetic tests that suggest it was twins all along. We just didn't know it, that were destined to divide into twins, but we don't know. That's the thing, we don't know. So you just, with a lot of this, you just take what comes. You know, when death happens, we call the time of death. When there's a new life, we say there's a new life. And you know, you kind of live your science is very humble, because you're constantly studying the handiwork of God, knowing you don't know everything, and you're never going to. Like there's some things that happen, like right now. Molecules moved all around in front of your face, and you're never going to know exactly where they were. The moment's gone. You lost it.
Well, can we, as we come to an end here, I do want to I don't want to end without you touching on this. So this idea of matter, of atoms, can you just, I mean, let's at least whet people's appetite here. What you study in chemistry and understand things to its smallest. I was fascinated how small things are, but how complex they are.
Yes.
So could you give us in a nutshell, what is an atom?
Yeah, an atom is like a little solar system. And so hardcore chemists will say, no, it's not, the Bohr model is not what we use anymore. It's true, we use the quantum mechanical model, but there's no analogy to really describe that. But it's like a little solar system, because there's the nucleus that has the protons and the neutrons in it, and they have the mass, so very high density mass in the nucleus, and then most of the atom is empty space.
Wow,
like if you picture a marble in the center of an entire football stadium,
that's the sort of scale we're talking about.
Yeah, all the mass is in the marble, and the space is all out there where the electrons are, and so there's the same number of electrons roughly as the number of protons. Give or take a few, depending on whether it ionizes. And so those electrons aren't just running around out there. They're in very precise energy levels. So you can think about that like the path of an orbit around the sun, but it's really more like a spread out energy all around, and it's vibrating. So there's kind of a musicality to it, harmonics, that define where the electron can go. And so electrons have this discontinuous motion. That's quantum mechanics. They can't go continuously from one energy level to the next. They can jump, but they don't travel in between. They jump. And that's how we visualize it. And they can jump, and so they can only be in very precise energies around the nucleus. And whenever an electron falls back down, it loses that energy. So you think of it as falling down from one level to another one. That's how we think about it. It loses that energy, that little packet of energy that it loses, that quantum, so it's quantifiable, it's a certain number of energy. It loses it, we think of it as, we call it a photon of light. Electromagnetic radiation that's given off because it's energy that was lost. It's given off as radiation. It might be visible light, it might be radio waves, it might be UV or gamma rays. But it's radiation that's given off, and it's quantifiable. All radiation has a certain frequency of the wave that it travels and a certain wavelength, the length of the wave. And that's light. That's
light. Okay.
That's what hits our eyes and our brain and retina's process.
I'm just trying to understand, is it inside the atom? Does the atom have a shape? Is it a ball? Is it an oval? What is an atom?
It's more like a space.
It's a space. So there's no actual...
A field.
Forgive me.
Think of a field, like an atom.
From one atom to the next, are they
doesn't really
touching?
have a boundary. So you've got the nucleus, and then you've got this electromagnetic field around it. You've got the strong and weak nuclear force inside the nucleus. And so what's holding the atom together is the negative electron and the positive proton.
So it's energy.
But the electrons are not just they're about 2,000 times smaller, but they're exactly 1,836 times smaller. And they're smaller, but they have the same magnitude of charge, just opposite, negative and positive. And so it's that force that holds them together, while the electrons are whizzing around in their orbitals, jumping between energy levels and giving off radiation. And what I said last night, which I think is so cool, like absolutely mind-blowing, that a certain element, cesium, the 133 isotope, so cesium-133, it has to do with how many protons are in the nucleus.
Yes.
It's ground state electrons. So ground state means they haven't gotten excited. They're in the normal ground resting state. Just it's normal electrons in their configuration. They also have this motion where they jiggle. They kind of like vibrate smaller in their ground state. And they're like 4 million times smaller vibrations than jumping between energy levels. So very fine. Call it hyperfine splitting. And I memorized this number just because it blows my mind. It's my favorite thing in the world. That's the atomic clock. We use those to tell time. And so the second is defined as 9,192,631,770 oscillations of the hyperfine splitting of the electron of the cesium-133 atom.
Yeah, for those who didn't get that like me, I mean,
over
maybe we can put that
out. But that is a second. So talk about, that's the atomic clock. That's what it is. That's how our smartwatches and things get there. It's recorded in orbits and satellites, and it's sent back down. The information is, and we count our time. We count our time based on how God created these 9 billion jiggles of this electron in a certain atom. And so when it jiggles, it gives off radio waves. That's how we know, and they can measure it. And so they measure that so precisely, not 775 times at the end, 770 times. Yeah. They measure it, and we've come a long way since sundials.
Absolutely. So what does this tell us? So what are you're saying? The conclusion is, when you start to understand all this, the complexity or the design behind it, or
like that gets into Aquinas's 5 ways, whether it's motion or cause, efficient cause, or being, or gradations of perfection, or the last one, teleology, or the governance of the world. Some call it design, but it's all kind of the same argument. But it's not talking about this happened, then in time this happened, then in time this happened. It's talking about what's holding things in existence right now. Right now, where you're sitting right now, what I'm just talking about is happening in every single atom that makes up your body. Like that is how your body is working as an organism, because the electrons are doing what they're supposed to do in all the atoms, and God knows where all those particles are.
Yes.
Like he knows all of that, and he knows everything about your soul, because we're body and soul.
Yes.
We're kind of masters of our own lives. We can, when a man and woman have a child, they've changed the trajectory of a great many atoms for all time that wouldn't have moved in those ways before. So it kind of gives you this stewardship appreciation too. But,
it blows your mind, doesn't it?
Wow. It does. And when you're having a bad day and you're thinking like nothing's working out, I think about that stuff, or I just go outside and look around. I'm like, okay, it's fine.
Okay. It's like, okay. Yeah, beautiful. So you've written a book about a lot of this. So what's the name of that book again?
Particles of Faith.
Particles of Faith. Yeah. And you go into a bit of detail about how it all works.
I tell a little bit about my story coming from chemistry into Catholicism. Yep. I tell just a little bit of that story, And then I have a section on the questions in biological sciences and questions in the physical sciences. So I get into the free will and neuroscience, quantum mechanics, and how to interpret it properly.
Fantastic.
But the longest chapter is on evolution.
Brilliant.
I don't have a problem with evolution if you understand that it's all God's creation, and we're just trying to figure out what happened.
Yes.
From a point of humility and limitations, we're just trying to figure it out. As long as scientists don't conclude from their studies that there's no soul or no God, like when they jump out of science and start doing philosophy badly, as long as they don't do that, let them do their science. Like I don't think we have anything. It's
not contrary to our faith or the Bible.
True science is not. Now, does that mean scientists aren't going to have wrong ideas? But theories in science are always changing. They're
interesting.
By nature, never complete. So let the scientists do their work. Don't fear them. Don't worry about it. People don't need to freak out about the word evolution. Just see what they have to say, because a lot of what we've learned about genetics, because of evolution and learning about genetics, taught us a lot about ourselves and how our bodies work and how to catch genetic diseases and how to understand chemical imbalances in the brain and sicknesses. So there's a lot of good there.
And God, there is a creator behind it all that's keeping it together, is keeping it going. So this is the beauty of it. Wow. Now, I do want to highlight, we don't have we're going to try to get access to your book, but the Catholic Answers, we are partners with Catholic Answers Australia, and we do have this bioethics booklet. You wrote when did you write this?
I wrote that in 2018, I believe.
Okay. In a nutshell, bioethics.
20,000 words.
Yeah, fantastic. And you cover just a bit of an introduction of what it is, what bioethics is, and answering some of the human persons to have the right to life and all this.
I tried to go, so it's Catholic Answers, they're little booklets, 20,000 words, 20 answers, do the math, and they want me to answer 20 questions. And so I came up with the 20 questions, but I start with the beginning of life and move to the end of life questions, everything from contraception to when does human life begin, even personhood, it's body and soul, I think all the bioethical questions come down to people forgot what the human person is, or they never knew. Like I did, I never knew. And then even organ donation, euthanasia, all the way to the end. So it's a real quick read.
Brilliant.
But it grounded in church documents, but also with my scientific background. But really it's about human dignity. Bioethical questions are about human dignity.
Wow, beautiful. Well, I recommend that for people. And now you have a website. What is that website?
StacyTrasancos.com. STACY, and Trasancos is TRASANCOS.com. But if you even get close to spelling it right, I'm told it comes up. So it's a hard last name to spell.
I'll put the link in the bottom, and hopefully people can check that out. I want to thank you for joining me here in Perth, Western Australia.
Thank you.
Beautiful day. And you're speaking tonight and tomorrow, and I'm wishing you all the best for that. Praying for you and all your work, your family, growing family. Please pray for us, Parousia, and love to have you on again down the track and maybe talk more about more topics. I just think it's fascinating and to learn more. Any books in the pipeline? Is there any plan?
I'm working on one about the past, present, and future of fetal tissue research.
Wow.
So it's something I wrote about in here, how they use aborted children in medical research.
Yes. Oh wow.
I got into that several years ago, and I found a lot of people just don't know all the ways aborted children are used. To understand the development trajectory from zygote to fully formed human being. They're using aborted children. So there's a lot of bioethical issues there. Who's culpable, who's responsible, what is allowed, what's not allowed.
That's a fascinating topic. We'll wish you well for that.
It's called An Unholy Science.
Very interesting. All right, well, let's stay tuned for that. Well, hopefully you're open to come to Australia again one day, and love to have you back. Well, thanks again for joining us. God bless you. And thanks, everyone. I hope you enjoyed that special episode of the Parousia Podcast. Check out the website. Pray for this woman and the great work she's doing, and hopefully bringing more people, bringing back science and faith, bringing it back together where it actually belongs. Thanks for joining me. Until next time, God bless.